Okay, let's have a look at some general formatting. This is something that's missing in a lot of spreadsheets. Numbers just dumped in, not necessarily formatted correctly, so it's difficult to see what you're looking at. But then, on the other hand, when you are formatting, you've got to remember what you're seeing is not necessarily what Excel is seeing when it's doing calculations. And there are a few things that you just need to be aware of. So let me show you 5 different kinds of formatting, which a lot of people use some of them, but not all of them. Let me just show you what I mean. The first one would be currency. So if you're entering a currency, if you go down, right click, if you select the section you want to do, right click and format cells, you can see the first thing. I mean, you've got the alignment and font and border and fill and all the rest of it. That's straightforward, coloring in, putting borders or filling the cell with different colors. Or alignments and things like that. But what I want to focus on today on this video is the number. So is it a currency or a date or a time or percentage or whatever? So if we start with currency, if you click on that, you can see you've got the different options as far as what to do for a negative number. So if you want to show negative numbers red, we can click on there. You can select the symbol and you can select the decimal places. Now, obviously that would normally be 2. Unless you're really looking at finer details, you may go to 3 or 4, or if you're looking at larger numbers, you might go to 0. Let's put in 2 for now and click OK. And then I normally put the currencies to align it to the right so that they're all lining up. So if you put in £120, for example, or £12, the pence and the single pounds and tens and so on all line up. So that's straightforward enough. A lot of people would use that. Then you've got the percentage one. So if we change that to percentage, it's the same process where we go to percentage and we can put in 2 decimal places. So now we put in, say, 80%, 20%, or whatever the percentage is. Now, what we need to just bear in mind with percentages, as with some of these other ones, is a percentage. If I come here and I say equals that, it'll change the percentage. But then if I format that as general, it's actually 0.8. So the percentage works out as a percentage of 1. So in this case, it would be 0.8. So you just have to keep that in mind when you're actually using this percentage for calculations. Again, I would probably align that to the right to line them all up. My point is that you got 0.8. So if you say, for example, if you want to give a score out of 100 and you just say equals that, then it's going to give you a score of 0.8 out of 100. You have to multiply this value by 100 to get to get it to say 80, for example, because it will take that value as 0.8. Even though we're seeing 80, it's actually reading 0.8. So you just got to keep that in mind when you're doing calculations. It's the same with some of these other ones. Let me come back to these 2, but let me do this one first. Format cells, and there's a number. So this one is similar to the currency, but it doesn't have the symbol. But in this case, let's say we want to use the 1,000 separator, but we don't want any decimal places because we only want to deal in whole numbers. So now if we put, again, I would align that to the right. So if you go 1,254, for example, or 12, it lines up nicely. You can see the comma separator in. And it just makes it easier to read as to what it is that you're looking at. Now, the last 2 that I want to show you are 2 that confuse people somewhat. They don't understand the difference between the hour, minute, seconds, and hour, minute, and so on. When you see in Excel where the hours in those square brackets, what that means is you're not actually looking at hours in the sense of time from a point of view of what is the time on your watch. So if you look at your watch and you see it's 10 a.m., that would be the hours, minutes, minutes. Now, you could have a single hour, you could have hour, so for argument's sake, 10 a.m. or 10 p.m., or you could have it as 10 a.m. and 2,200 hours in the evening. The difference is the one with the H in the brackets. That means how many hours is it? So this is more time that you would put in, say, for example, if you went for a run or if you went out, I was out for 2 hours and 55 minutes rather than the time is 2:55. So that's the difference. This is taking time in a measurement of time, whereas this is taking time as in what is the time. So let's start with this one because it's marginally easier. If we go here and we right click and we say format cells, we can go to time, and here you can see some different options. But if you have a look at the custom at the bottom, there's a whole bunch of options here, which a lot of people don't actually use. And there is hours, minutes. So here we could have hours, minutes, AM, PM. Here we could have hours, minutes, seconds, AM, PM. Whereas there's one H there just to show that even though you might have 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, the fact is it stops at 12 and then goes back to 1 again, and it just shows AM or PM. Whereas this one here shows hours, minutes, which means this one will go 12 o'clock, then 13, 14, 15, 16, up to 24. So it's a 24-hour clock. So if we say okay for that, so now you can put in 10, and you have to put the little dots in and click enter. If you put in 10 and click enter, then it assumes that it's 10 days and it goes on for 10 days and it causes a bit of grief. So you do need to put in the time as a time. So you could, for example, put in 1600 hours for 4 o'clock. I'll look at this one as to what it produces, but let's just have a look at this one first. So if we go to the hours, minutes, seconds, format cells, again, we go down to the custom and we can click, not that one, that's the hours, minutes, seconds, and actual time. If you scroll down a bit further, we can see there hours in the square brackets, minutes, seconds. So this is, for example, if I went for a run and I did it in 1 hour and 2 minutes and 35 seconds, that would be what we would type in. Or we could put in 0 for the hours, 12 minutes and 39 seconds, whatever the case might be, you can put in the time. Now, as we looked at with the percentage, these aren't necessarily doing what you see. So some people will use these, especially this column here, and then they'll want to say, multiply that out for an hourly rate. And let's just say this person's getting £20 an hour. And what they want to do then is they want to say that one equals that one times by that to get an hourly rate, and it formats by time. So let's go back and change that to formatting by currency. And as we can see, whoops, it says they've made £0.87p, and you kind of go, well, hold on a second, that's not right if they work for an hour. The reason being is if we say equals that and we format that as a general so we can see what Excel is actually seeing, it's seeing 0.0434, and you go, well, what does that mean? That is a number that it assigns that time. So that time is actually that percentage of a day. So what you need to do is you need to multiply it by 24. Now, if we say format general, there we go, 1 hour, 0.043, which is that effectively as an hour being the unit. So what we need to do here is actually times that by 24. So now we get £20.86, which is the hourly rate for that. So these are the kind of things I mentioned. Just because you're seeing that as an hour doesn't necessarily mean that Excel is seeing it. Excel is presenting it in that, but Excel is actually looking at the data Excel sees is that as a percentage of a day. So you need to multiply. If you want it as an hourly rate, for example, you want to multiply it out, you need to multiply by 24 to get that figure as an hour so that it actually works for formulas. But if you're just telling up that time and you want to just see what that is, then those kind of things work brilliantly. So yeah, use the formatting, have a play around with it. You can make it look visually appealing as to what data you're trying to show, but just do keep in mind that when you do format things, what you're seeing isn't necessarily the value that Excel is using. So you just have to be aware of that when you're doing calculations with that data. So I hope that helps you with your spreadsheets. Thank you.